didn't have the perfect cover story, I would have been done. Me and that girl would have been probably right now in serious trouble. As America have an obligation towards the citizens right now, we do know that there are several American citizens held hostage in Gaza by Hamas. One of them, for example, is Hirsch. There is so many things that can get you killed there. The wrong handshake, the wrong gesture on your chest, so many small things that can just literally get you killed and lynched on the spot. Can the Delta Force survive in Gaza? Hey guys, welcome back and let's get to business. Can the Delta Force survive in Gaza? Were the Delta Force in Gaza boots on the ground, shoulder to shoulder with the IDF as they were going to rescue the American hostage citizens held in Gaza by Hamas? Some of you have been asking me these questions and I'm going to be trying to answer. And these are good questions. How can I answer this question without creating an international diplomatic incident, or in general without pissing off Uncle Moshe, and next time that I go to Israel with Rafi, he's going to come and tell me, come on dude, what are you doing? You can't be saying these things. So I'm going to do my best to try to answer that question. Were the Delta Force in Gaza? During the time of my service, when I was serving in Gaza, I remember several times encountering several international and very shady units operating in Gaza. Regarding the shady units, the problem was that their moral standards, let's just say it that way, were way lower than the international moral standard. And they were a bit problematic. Regarding the Delta Force, and here's the thing about units like the Delta Force, they are known to be operating all across the globe. That's literally part of the training, part of their purpose. There is numerous reports of Delta Force operating in Afghanistan, in Lebanon, in Syria, all around the Middle East, all around the world. Were they in Gaza? Let's focus on October 7. Were they in Gaza since October 7 until today, working, like I said, shoulder to shoulder with the IDF, going and combating Hamas as they are trying to rescue the American citizens? Because America have an obligation towards the citizens right now. We do know that there are several American citizens held hostage in Gaza by Hamas. One of them, for example, is Hirsch. That is this young man that we saw the picture where he lost his arm, where Hamas threw grenades into the bomb shelter, butchering, killing his friends. Further, they even released one of the videos with him speaking to the world. So, without no doubt, America have an interest and should have the obligations to go and rescue its citizens anywhere around the world. And what better unit to do that than units like Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and etc. We also know, based on numerous news reports, including Americans, that American presence was in Israel and in Gaza. America even said that they sent the Delta Force and other Secret Service units to Israel to try to help bring back the hostages. We do know that America and Europe and Britain have been helping Israel with drone images and satellite images and etc. But did they send the Delta Force into Gaza to go and rescue their hostages? That's a whole different ball game, and I'm gonna try to explain that. During my service, I've trained with the Delta Force, I've met some of the Delta Force people, and I will just say they are definitely one of the best, most skilled, most capable units on the face of this earth. Very talented people, very impressive people. They actually reminded me very much of the Israeli Sayeret Matkal. And in general, the average Delta Force person, from my experience at least, is probably not going to look like what most people imagine. Let's just say they don't look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And a lot of time people think that this is how special forces look like. I can tell you for sure that people that look like that, these bodybuilder buffs, will not survive a day in a real special forces oriented combat zone. Let's just say it that way. And to help better understand, let's look at what does it mean to send a special unit into Gaza to rescue hostages. Usually in such hostage rescue operations, you have what I call the 4 elements that you need to have in order to execute a proper, successful hostage rescue mission. And we're going to talk about them, and we're going to see are the Delta Force capable of pulling that in Gaza? The number one is gathering intelligence. Satellite images, drone images, all kind of technological means that we'll probably never know about and maybe only in the future we'll hear about. So they can gather the proper intelligence, find the location, find where the hostages, and build a plan. How can we go and rescue them? Can the Delta Force do that? Can America pull that off? Absolutely yes. Probably even better than what the Israelis can do, because they definitely have the technologies and the mean and the manpower to do that. And that stage for itself can sometimes take weeks, months, even years of preparing and planning for an operation like that. Number two, and that's where things get very interesting, is implementing these intelligence sources in the ground. We started with the digital, and now we're going to the human. In any modern warfare, whenever an army ignored the human aspects, they paid a heavy price. And what do I mean by that? You need boots on the ground. You need people that can go to that location undercover and get you the intelligence and the information that you need. Can the Delta Force pull that? Well, that is, I think, the most complicated questions we're going to answer right now. Because you see, based on what we know that the Yamam did in the hostage rescue operation that they just pulled out from Gaza, Israel have confirmed that they have sent a team of Mista'arvim into Gaza to stay there, to live there for several weeks prior to the hostage rescue. Now, to be able to send that team, and in Hebrew we call them Mista'arvim, and if you translate Mista'arvim literally to English, it's two words combined into one. Lehistanen, which is to infiltrate, and Aravim is Arab. So they put that word together and made it Mista'arvim. If you translate it literally to English, that would be Arab flaters, but that doesn't really work in English. But the whole idea is these are highly trained, highly skilled individuals that spent years studying and training for one particular purpose in a one particular area. Because you need to understand, places like Gaza, which is a very small piece of land that is very organic, are highly, highly suspicious of any stranger that comes and visit. And yes, the Delta Force can and definitely does use that tactic, and they probably have done that when they're fighting ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or the Taliban in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and different places around the world. But the main difference between ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and Hamas as a terrorist organization, which they have many, many similarities, but one of the main differences that I would say is that organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda are very, very international. They're very widespread. They kind of took the whole idea or concept of what they see as the golden age of Islam, as what they see in the Quran of the Prophet Muhammad and his warlords when they were going from one place to another, raiding, killing, butchering, raping, and then converting everyone, and then moving to the next place and the next place, and expanding the Muslim empire. And they wanted to bring that back, to bring the Muslim Caliphate to the world and expand it and take over the world, just as they were promised by the Prophet. And because of that, they were very open to recruits from all over the world. ISIS had people join them from all over the Arab world, from Egypt, from Libya, from Lebanon, from Syria, from America, from Europe, from Britain. For some reason, it's always the Brits. There were many Brits, blonde, redheads, females who went and joined ISIS. So when you look at organizations like Al-Qaeda or like Taliban, it was quite common to see international face and people from different places around the world. Sometimes you'll come to one unit and there's everybody in that war group and that raid group are from a different place in the world. When it comes to Hamas, it's very different. Because you see, Gaza, let's say that way, Gaza doesn't have a lot of tourism. Any international that enters Gaza is either an aid worker that's been approved and been filtered and scanned, and there's not too many of them, or he's directly supporting terrorism. And in either case, if you're not from Gaza and you enter Gaza, you're probably under the blessing and authority of one of the families or Hamas itself, so they know who you are and they approved you. Not only that these people need to train for years to learn the language, learn the accent, learn the culture, learn the economy of that area, have a flawless cover story that will say where they came from, have an accent that will support that cover story. If they came from Egypt, they came from Lebanon, or I don't know what, they need to know the small ticks and perks of that community. There is so many things that can get you killed there. The wrong handshake, the wrong gesture on your chest when you meet an elderly woman, the way you carry yourself, the way that you speak to a lady, to a girl, to a man, so many small things that can just literally get you killed and lynched on the spot. And let's say a Yamam unit or a Delta unit now enters Gaza and their cover is blown. All hell will go loose. But the thing is, with these units, they can still fight their way out. They're gonna go out with a fight, and maybe they'll manage to survive. We have crazy stories of the Delta Force managed to survive in that lone survivor story. I think it was in Afghanistan. You have the SAS, where they were caught behind enemy line in Iraq, and the Bravo 20 story, and they managed to survive and walk all the way back out of this war zone. So these units are more than capable to fight their way and handle themselves. And if all hell goes loose and they go down, they're gonna take as many Muslims as they can with them. I call them Muslims, but I mean radical Muslim zombies. These Allah Akbar people just run at you in hordes, coming to kill you. If you are a Mista'arvim, if you are one of these spies that go into that enemy land, first of all, you need to find a way to put them in. After the intense training, you need to now place them in, create a cover story for them. And now they're not just sitting there hiding in a basement waiting for the cue. They are literally actively walking in the streets, hunting down terrorists, trying to find information about the whereabouts of the hostages, try to draw maps of that locations. Where are they? Which floor? Which room? How many guards are they? How many armed guards are there? What kind of weapons are they using? Is there cameras? Is there booby traps? Which thing you should know? Which thing you should not know? When should you come? Where should you come? So much active information that they need to gather. They need to be able to communicate back home without being exposed. And if they get exposed in the market, in the street alley, in a coffee shop, they're on their own. The chances of them surviving is zero. We know that Israel have sent their men and women to live there for several weeks, gather information. I mean, what kind of a badass woman do you need to be able to go into one of the most dangerous places, one of the most suspicious places in the world, and do that kind of job? So can the Delta Force pull that? In that particular environment of Gaza and Hamas, I highly doubt it. Now comes stage 3. Stage 3 is the rescue itself. That's when you usually see these Delta or these Yamam on their uniform when they come on the raids. We know that the Yamam did that as per the numerous articles from international sources and Israeli sources, that they did that in broad daylight. They went there with 2 teams at the same time. Now, one thing that played to the hands of Israel and made it maybe a bit easier to do it was during this war in Gaza, because Israel is fighting this war in the most humanitarian way ever known in modern warfare. I mean, come on, the death ratio there is 1-to-1. This is unheard of. When America fought ISIS, it was 1-to-5, 1-to-10, 1-to-60 at times. So 1-to-1 is unheard of. Not only that, Israel has been sending millions of SMSs and dropping leaflets telling the Gazans that we're gonna come and we're gonna... They basically divide Gaza into different blocks, and they come and say, we're going to come to this neighborhood right now, we're going to eliminate Hamas, find all the tunnels, destroy them, and try to find all the hostages and retrieve them. So please get out of there. You can move from here to here, and then we're going to come here, you can move here. And they've been kind of telling the people in Gaza where to go. By doing that, you're telling your enemy the location and the time of your attack. This is unheard of. You're basically losing almost completely the element of surprise. But Israel has been doing that because they're trying to bring a high humanitarian standard into that war. But what this actually did is it created a very chaotic environment in Gaza right now, with a lot of displaced people moving around, with a lot of new faces that were not there coming, a lot of people seeking shelter, trying to find new jobs. And in that fog of war, in that chaos, it was a little bit easier for the IDF or for a unit like the Delta to probably infiltrate and enter a location in disguise so they can go and rescue the hostages. Now, are they capable of rescuing hostages? Absolutely. I've seen them work. I've trained with them. They are as trained and as skilled as the elite units in Israel. In some aspects, they are better. In some aspects, the Israelis are better. But in general, they're very trained and very skilled. So they can definitely do that. But now comes stage 4. Stage 4 is after you're rescued, is the extraction. Now, we know from the story of the Yamam that in one building where the female was being held, Noor Gamani, it went pretty flawlessly. They killed the terrorists. They killed the innocent civilians that were kidnapping her, a doctor and a journalist. Here's one of the problems with Gaza. Undoubtedly, there are innocent civilians in Gaza. However, there's also a lot of not so innocent civilians. We know that on October 7, it wasn't only Hamas who broke into Israel. It was many civilians who entered and killed and raped and butchered and burned people alive and then kidnapped people into Gaza. We know that in these areas, a lot of these innocent civilians are either fighting directly against the IDF or giving their location to the IDF to Hamas or putting booby traps for them, running in the streets with AK-47s, with RPGs, throwing bricks from the rooftop. So it does make it very complicated to figure out who is an innocent civilian and who is actually a Hamas terrorist. Forget the fact that Hamas is dressed like civilians, which is make it very, very difficult. Now, On the second building that the IDF broke into when they went to rescue the other 3 male hostages, apparently the information that was gathered by these Mista'arvim was not so accurate, and the Imam was surprised to find it, and that's what I read in several of the sources. They said that they found about 30 terrorists in that building. I find 30 to be quite a lot, to be honest, but who knows? Maybe they realized that something is happening and they sent reinforcements. Maybe that was just a routine kind of replacement of guards, or maybe they just went there to drink tea and smoke an argila and hubbly bubbly. Long story short, we know that the Imam eliminated all these terrorists, which I find is insane for itself, because there were probably way less Imam than these guys, but these guys are badass. These guys are elite killer instinct warriors. They just went there and eliminated all the terrorists, rescued the hostages. During that operation, one of the Imam officers, Arnon, ended up dying, paying the ultimate price. And now, stage 4. Now they are rescuing them out of Gaza, out of this terrorist hornets, out of this refugee camp that is full of hundreds to thousands of insurgents. And once the rescue started and the gunshots were going, there were hundreds of these terrorists running around in the streets, on the rooftops, coming to try and butcher and kill the hostages and the unit. In that case would be Imam or the Delta. And they had to fight their way under fire out of Gaza. Now, here's the thing in these kind of operations. If you manage to do it quietly, you go in, you go out, you minimize the level of civilian casualties on all sides. But if the community try to resist, they try to fight back and kill you and retrieve the hostages back, you need to have, as a government, plan A, plan B, up the way to plan Z. And Israel had plan B, which is basically, I call it like the finger of God. They said, we are bringing back our children no matter what. And when that happened, and there were hundreds to thousands of these Muslims running on the roofs, going around in buildings, trying to kill them, we know of a story that one of the Israeli generals kind of tweeted about it. Apparently one of the vehicles that was evacuating with the Imam, going out with the hostages, got hit by RPGs and gunshots, and it ended up breaking down. And he came and he said in that moment, they had the fear that this might end up becoming another Black Hawk Down. Similar situation where they need to go and send the whole army to rescue these people, and many people are going to get killed and kidnapped. So Israel said, hell no, we are going to bring these people down. And what they did is they created an evacuation corridor for them, using the Air Force, using the Navy SEALs, the Shaldag, using the paratroopers, combat engineering, tank. They basically, just like in Black Hawk Down, they've sent the entire military to go and rescue their people, and they opened a corridor. We're talking danger close. There were rockets, precision rockets falling down on buildings with full of terrorists just by the Israeli hostages and the Imam as they were extracting, eliminating them. And what you do in these cases, you kind of, like I said, you create a firewall. You kill anyone that is coming to kill them from the streets, from the roofs, and I don't know what. And you also prevent from other terrorists entering that area. So imagine now there's a bunch of, let's say, 100 of these Hamas terrorists and civilians running around, Allahu Akbar, going to kill them, and suddenly a whole building just explode, and they fall back and seal this fire, and they start running away, creating this extraction zone for Israel to bring back the hostages home. Can the Delta Force pull that? And the answer for that would be absolutely yes. They have the capability to do it just like Israel have. But for them to be able to do that, they need to basically come and tell Israel, listen guys, we need you to step aside. We're going to bring our entire military and we're going to do it ourselves. Because if the Delta Force will try to do it just by themselves, it becomes very complicated. You see, when you're a Imam soldier, you grew up through the rank in the IDF. You were in some of the special units or the combat units, and then you went and you were handpicked and volunteered to become in that elite unit. You know how to speak in the radio. You know how the army works. You know how other units work. Other units know how to talk to you. The IDF is just a very well-oiled machine when it comes to IDF, Israel Defense Force. So their whole purpose is defending Israel. So they know very well how to work in that piece of land. Now, if America have hostages, let's say in Somalia or in other places, they might come to that local militia or army, tell them, listen guys, our standard is a little bit different than yours. Step aside, let us come, we're going to do it, and then you can continue doing what you're doing. I think that in this particular case, with the war in Hamas in Gaza, with the hostages, even though they're American hostages held in Gaza, it's probably easier for America to come and say, Israel, You do what you do best. We're just going to come and support you. We'll help you with weapons. We'll help you with trainings. The Delta Force, known to be in Israel, they probably met with some of the Israeli units and they exchanged information. Things that the Delta have learned from fighting ISIS and Taliban. Things that Israel have learned from fighting Hamas and Hezbollah. And with that kind of support, I still believe that America would rather rely on the Israeli forces to rescue their citizens rather than sending the Delta or the Navy SEALs, let's say, to enter Gaza, because you don't simply send a special unit into Gaza. That sounds like Lord of the Rings sentence. You don't simply go to Mordor. Because if you send a unit like Delta into Gaza, because it's not like in a computer game where you go there with guns and then you see a terrorist and you throw a rock at a door and he goes to look at that and you come from behind him, take him down, and it will become a bloodbath very, very fast. And like I said, these units are definitely capable of taking care of themselves, but bottom line, you're sending them to an enemy land. It's their land, their home, their people. You're gonna end up losing them all. Either they all die and they probably take way more Muslims with them, or you end up just giving the enemy more hostages. So you don't do that. You need to have the whole 4 steps of preparation, and there's many other elements that come into that. Looking at what the Imam did, as someone that came from that world, looking at the whole preparation that went around. This kind of operation is probably one of the top 5 hostage rescue in modern warfare in the world. Maybe even the first. It's such a complicated operation for the Delta Force to come and do that in Gaza with all the information that I gave you right now. I think it's very unlikely. To give you a personal story of how complicated it is to walk a meter in these areas like Gaza without being detected. You can practically fart in Gaza, and by the smell of your fart, they will know that you're not from Gaza. I remember when I was one time hiking Jordan, I ended up meeting a Dutch girl that almost died in the desert. She got dehydrated, she got very sick, and I had to rescue her from the desert because time is of the essence. I had to go and find the nearest hospital. The nearest hospital happened to be in a small Palestinian village in the Jordanian desert. So as we were going, me and that tall, beautiful, blonde Dutch girl in Jordan, entering that village, immediately the children that were running to us started talking, asking us where we're from, and I kind of gave them a cover story that I had. And then I asked them a question about Israel. What do you think about Israel? And they told me, the kids told me how their dream in life is to kill the Israelis, kill the Jews, and annihilate Israel. So I knew immediately that there is no way that I can let them know that I'm an Israeli in that situation. I ended up rebooting my entire phone, and I had to build a very robust cover story because as we went to that hospital, every second civilian came and started interrogating me. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? Who is your father? Min abuk, min immak. Every second civilian was acting as if he's some kind of a CIA investigation officer. Further, the police started coming to the hospital and talking to me over and over, trying to confirm my story. It was getting very hostile, and in the end we had to even run away from that hospital and escape into Israel. But that's a long story for another podcast. But my point is, if I didn't have the perfect cover story, I would have been done. Me and that girl would have been probably right now in serious trouble. And that was in Jordan, in a Palestinian village. Take that to Gaza, that's like on steroids. That's how difficult it is and complicated to pull such a Mista'arvim operation in Gaza. And I just don't think that the Delta Force or America have that capability in such a short time to bring it to that level as Israel has been doing for a lifetime. And here's the thing, a lot of time this whole Mista'arvim operation is probably harder than the hostage rescue operation itself. You see, everybody look at these Navy SEALs, Delta Force Imam, and they see him as like, it's a very sexy thing. It's a very cool thing. These special forces, you imagine that battle scene from the movie The Rock when they're sitting in the shower in Alcatraz, and the guy is saying, I will not give that order, I will give that order, and then you see that, no, they're shooting there and just all look epic. But people tend to forget the other heroes behind the shadows, the heroes that have an incentive not to be mentioned because they want to stay undercover. Their job many times is more difficult, takes more time, and even more dangerous. And once the operation is done, not only that you had to work so hard to put them in, now you need to bring them out. A lot of times they will just come and rain deja vu with the forces as they're fighting their way out, and they will just get out of this war zone. But that just comes to show you how complicated and delicate such an operation needs to be. It takes sometimes weeks, months, and years to prepare for that. So to answer your question, I think the Delta Force is definitely one of the most capable units on the face of this earth, but in this particular case, I highly doubt that they were inside of Gaza. And yeah, that's, again, this is not an official statement of the Israeli government. This is literally my opinion based on the knowledge and the experience that I have from that world. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you don't mind doing me a favor and click the subscribe, like, share, the whole shebang, leave a comment, because a lot of time your comments give me the ideas for the next videos that I'm gonna make. And as I always say, stay safe, don't do anything stupid, and in general, just don't do anything that I would do.